Again. I'm trying again. I'm trying again this time to see if the live feed works. I know last time you guys said you couldn't hear me, so I'm rebooting and I restarted my phone, and I'm gonna try it again this time to see see if we can actually get some magic. So if you can hear me, just say I can hear you, so that I know that you can hear me and we don't have to go through this again. Now I was thinking today about the topic that's on everybody's mind of the shooting deaths of Philando Castile and Alton Sterling. As you know, Alton was killed in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Philando was killed in Minnesota, and you would expect, a lot of people believe that because Minnesota's in the north that racism isn't real, and what a lot of people don't know actually is that the only march that Dr. King ever had in his life that was considered to be a failure was his march in the north. He went to Chicago to march on I think it was an issue with housing or um, uh, either housing, minimum wage, it was workers' rights, something like that. I think it was fair housing. It might have been fair housing, and and basically, they acted a fool. I mean, they really, he felt like his life was, in jeopardy. He said he'd never seen anything like this even in the South. And a lot of us go through that. A lot of us think that when you go north, that you're getting rid of a lot of the racial stigma that people are accustomed to seeing in the South, and that's just not true. I had some of my biggest race battles not when I was at the University of Kentucky, which is in the South, but when I was at Syracuse University, which is in the North. And I think that it's very important to understand that racism is something that hits us hard everywhere and not just in certain parts of the country. Now, anyway, I want to go into something that I was digging up. I was trying to do research on what happened with my brother Alton Sterling and also with this other brother, Philando Castile. And I found some interesting things that I thought I would share with you, some interesting information. The first thing, and I want to ask you guys about this, and I want you to tell me if I'm wrong, if there's something that I'm missing here. I haven't really seen anything definitive from President Obama, about the shootings. Now, let me know if anybody has seen anything, because I don't want to misrepresent what the president did or did not say. Um, I just saw in People magazine this article that came out less than an hour ago that President Obama says he's deeply troubled by the shootings. Um, I don't know what deeply troubled, I don't know. I mean, that's a pretty generic statement. That's kind of what I expected from Hillary Clinton. I didn't expect that from President Obama. Let's see. He says that they share anger, grief, and frustration that so many Americans are feeling. Okay, all Americans should be deeply, deeply troubled by the fatal shootings, and that's it. That's it. I mean, there's nothing else. Now, let's see. While the president has said that he is constrained in commenting on the particular facts of either case, he applauded the U.S. Department of Justice's decision to open a civil rights investigation. The Justice Department said through a spokesman that it will continue to monitor the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension investigation into Castile's death there and stands ready to provide assistance. But regardless, this is a quote, but regardless of the outcome of such investigations, what's clear is that these fatal shootings are not isolated incidents. Okay, that's a little bit more, but you haven't really hit the mark that well. They are symptoms of of the broader challenges within our criminal justice system, the racial disparities. Okay, now we might be getting somewhere. The racial disparities that appear across the system year after year. So he's talking about the racial disparities in the system and the resulting lack of trust that exists between law enforcement and too many communities they serve. That's a real interesting statement. That's very, very, you know, kind of like I'm towing the line, towing the fence, and and I'm wondering. Okay, so Star says that President Obama is on MSNBC right now talking about it. So I'd be curious to see what the president says. So what we'll do is we'll refrain judgment until we hear exactly what the president says, so that we can really talk about exactly what he said and not what we think he might be thinking or what he might be feeling. I think that's it's interesting, that Obama's taking so long to comment. One of the things about this shooting as well that, kind of serves as my biggest pain in all of this is that, people have been talking about this for a long time and nobody would listen. I still remember being back at Syracuse, back in say '05, '06, '07, back when they were, when they were trying to fire me for being too loud. And, I remember saying, that to me, black men were treated like the cockroaches of America. And the cockroach, I compared it to a cockroach because I said nobody really cares about the pain of a cockroach. If you rip off the cockroach's legs, you don't care how it feels. And also, everybody wants to kill the cockroach because they're a nuisance. Sometimes they're scary and disgusting and even even deadly to some people in the minds of some people. And so ultimately, I think that what really is interesting is that I've talked to people today who have called me and said, you know, I'm in deep pain right now. They called me and just said, I've talked to people who've told me that they're just in unimaginable pain, and I understand the pain that they're feeling, and they wonder why my pain doesn't appear to be as readily apparent. And I said, well, because I've been in pain for decades over this. I had an uncle, an older brother type figure who was a lot like Eric Garner. He was just like this brother Alton Sterling. He was a big guy. He always had a smile. He struggled. He spent some time in jail, and he was marginalized. So he would be that guy that would be on the corner selling CDs or loose cigarettes. He didn't have a place to live half the time, and I remember what he went through. I remember up until the day he died, until the day he laid down in the middle of the street and got ran over by a truck because he didn't feel like his life was worth anything. He spent a lot of time drinking and smoking weed because there wasn't much hope for the future for him, and he was a person that was kind of abandoned by by society, by life, by the world. And so when I see these guys dying, it makes me kind of reflective on that. It makes me think about everything I've seen, all the death that I've seen all through the years. I remember when my best friend, Greg Wilkins, was murdered back in Louisville, Kentucky, my hometown, back in 1996. It was right around the time Tupac died, I think the same year, and he was the same age as Pac, if I'm not mistaken. And at least I was. And I remember when Greg got killed. He got killed by another brother, by the way. So we still don't believe Black Lives Matter when black people are the ones doing the killing. So I think that that's I think that's kind of an issue as well. Is that is that I think we have to really think about what that really means when we say Black Lives Matter. Give me one second. When we say Black Lives Matter, it's I think that we have to really think about what that means and be willing to really commit to that idea. And so if Black Lives Matter, that means that Black lives always have to matter. It doesn't mean they just matter when it's in mainstream media. It doesn't mean that they only matter when it's a white police officer shooting a black man, or that it only matters, when you're talking about some sort of racial injustice. I think black lives need to matter all the time. And because even black on black crime, which I do believe black on black crime is a real thing. I hate the idea that people act like it doesn't exist. I don't think that it doesn't exist. I know that there are neighborhoods I can go to where a black man might take my money and kill me. And I don't feel, and I can go to places where my life might be more in jeopardy than it would be in other places. And what you have to understand is that acknowledging the existence of such a thing is not some sort of acquiescence to to conservative rhetoric. What it is it's you acknowledging what's really happening in your neighborhoods and in your communities. And it's also a matter of reflecting on the fact that it all links back to racism and social engineering. If I go to the south side of Chicago, there are places where it's very easy to get shot way, down the south side. There's a lot of places in the south side as well, though, where it's easier to get love, right? So there's wonderful places in the south side, but there's some places that are not safe for children. And I think that what we have to realize is that this is a result of policy, and planning that allows these neighborhoods to be dangerous. A lot of these people in these communities are good people. The majority are good people. if somehow weapons get into these communities that were not made by black people, and I believe politicians allow them in, I believe police officers allow them in fact, I believe the cops are doing a lot of the killing and pretending that the gangbangers did it so they can keep things going, keep the chaos happening. Drugs get to these communities that are not made in these areas, right? So these drugs are coming from other places, but they don't get into other parts of the city. You have other things, educational neglect, economic neglect, other forms of social engineering that lead to various types of desperation that may cause people to do things that they might not do if the environment was safe and healthy. So, I think that if we're talking about what Black Lives Matter means, to me, Black Lives Matter means that Black lives matter. It doesn't mean it matters when it's the cops and the cops are killing our kids, or that somehow suddenly we should feel a fear of something that was there all along. You see, that's the thing. Seeing this violence on TV is making some people say, "Oh my God, I didn't know that this threat was there." And what you didn't realize is that this threat was always there. In fact, the threat has actually declined a little bit over time in the relative to say the 1980s and 1970s. When I've seen scenarios of cops making jokes about how they could take somebody and put them in a car and go beat their ass and then drop them off at the police station and say that they attacked a police officer. Right? I mean, these are the kinds of things that have happened for a long time. So let's not act so surprised. It's not a surprise. It's something that's been around us all the time. So the other thing that I want to jump into is I want to actually read something to you guys that I found. I was reading up on this study. It was actually cited on Vox.com, and the interesting thing is that I think that we have to really talk about exactly how race kind of fits into the equation. And if you happen to have white people around and want to explain it to them, I don't really explain a lot of stuff to white people because white people don't really understand me typically. But if that's something you like to do, then maybe this will help you kind of do that. But by the way, if you want to get a free e-copy of my book, It Takes a Village to Raise the Bar, A New Paradigm for Black America, you can go to drboycewatkins.net and get a free copy. Just go to drboycewatkins.net. Just sign up and it's free. Also, by the way, Tariq Nasheed had made a great film, Hidden Colors, that covers a lot of black history. It covers a lot of racism. It covers a lot of the things that we talk about in terms of things that are happening to us that we know about and things we don't know about. And so if you want to get his series, which I think is a great supplement to what you can have in your house. I mean, since everybody's feeling black, let's be black all the way. Let's not just be black till Friday. Let's be black for good. You can go check it out. You can buy the whole series at hiddencolors1234.com. That's hiddencolors1234.com. Just the numbers 1234. You can go take a look at that series. And there's we throw in free books for education and all kinds of stuff. So go check that out because I think that, this is kind of an awakening. I think that when you go through something like this, you have a lot of emotional energy. And the question is, that's very simple, is what are you going to do with that energy? What do you do with that energy? I mean, do you just stay mad? Do you just say, hey, I'm black and I'm just going to be, I'm just going to be black for the rest of the week and I'm going to cry and be upset and then it's going to go away? Because that's what America does when it comes to gun control. America can't get the political will to engage in meaningful gun control because every time there's a massacre, every time you see a situation where a bunch of little children get slaughtered or a bunch of old people or gay people or white people or black people, we get all upset. And people get upset for about maybe a week, and then they try to pass the laws, and the laws get voted down. So effectively, America is even more guilty than, say, the black community would ever be when it comes to really not being able to engage in meaningful action. Sometimes we become more reactive and more emotional than we actually become proactive and thoughtful about sort of how to structure things, in the future to make sure that our children are safe and that the policies reflect the values of the American people. Now, I'm going to read this study to you from Vox, and I want you to kind of think about this a little bit. And this actually talks about the gun control issue. And the title of the article is The Obvious Reason the NRA Isn't Commenting on the Philando Castile Police Shooting. The obvious reason the NRA isn't commenting on the Philando Castile Police Shooting. On Wednesday night, police officers shot and killed reportedly legal gun owner Philando Castile, and although the details remain unclear, it seems that the officers may have panicked and shot Castile to death when he reached for his driver's license after disclosing he had a gun. This would seem like a standard case for the National Rifle Association. A legal gun owner was shot for doing everything you're supposed to do, reportedly getting his concealed carry permit, and telling an officer during a traffic stop that a gun was present in the car. But the NRA's official position so far is no comment. So they said, well, why is this the case? Well, they said one possible explanation is that the NRA has an uneasy alliance with police. Both police unions and the NRA are conservative groups, and many police officers are also gun owners and NRA members. The NRA then has an interest in not upsetting the police, especially since the facts of the shooting remain unclear due to the lack of video of the shooting itself. So there was video of what happened after the shooting, but there's no video of what happened during the actual bang, 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 right? So that's what they're probably going to say. They're going to say, well, there's there's no video of the actual shooting. So when you challenge them, they're going to say, well, hey, there's no video. We don't know what happened before she took her cell phone video. And that's where they start making up all the fairy tales about this big, scary black man who's going to kill a whole bunch of cops. But there's another more obvious question. Castile was black, or obvious explanation, excuse me. Castile was black, and gun ownership in America, down to the NRA's messaging, is largely built on white identity. The link between white identity and gun ownership has been shown by researchers. A 2015 study published in the journal Political Behavior looked at survey data going back to the 1990s and found a strong correlation between opposition to gun control and levels of racial resentment. So that means that basically when you oppose gun control, you tend to be somebody who doesn't like black people, right? You have issues with black people, right? You're thinking, I'm getting my gun to protect myself from these thugs, which is code word for niggas, right? I mean, we know that, right? That's been in establishment for a long time. They can't say niggas no more, so they say thug. And basically, we're protecting ourselves. I'm an American. I'm protecting my freedom. I'm protecting my family from these thugs. And then that way you get away with being as racist as you want to be. So digging even deeper, let's read more here. But the results only found a correlation. So the research dug deeper. They asked nearly 1,200 white participants a series of questions they asked them online about gun laws. They said half the group first looked at pictures of white and black people from an implicit association test, which is sort of, they associate two things, but they don't tell you exactly what they're doing, to make them think about race, while the other half did not. So basically, they showed some of the people a picture of black people, maybe pictures of white people, etc., to try to get a sense of how you respond when you see a black person. Because as you know, there are studies that show that when white people see black people, they literally, their heart rate goes up. They get really scared. I still remember that happened to me one time when a guy, I went and I came out of Barnes & Noble with my daughter, and I had a rental car. And so it was a rental car, so I didn't remember exactly what it looked like. So I saw there was another car that was just like my car, right? Just like my car. And I thought my daughter was in the front seat. So I opened the back seat of the car to throw my bag into the car. And this white man was in the front seat, and he literally lost his mind. Like, he literally freaked out. He was like, oh my God, what are you doing? What are you doing? Can I help you? Can I help you? And I was thinking, what's he doing in my car? And then I was like, oh my God, this is the wrong car. And the cars were literally right across from each other. And I got out of the car. And I said, man, this guy, I said, hey, sir, I'm so sorry. It was such an accident. Our cars look just alike. And I showed him. I was walking. I pointed. I was like, you see, my car looks just like yours. Ha ha, laughing it off. And he literally, this white guy, this guy literally had no smile for me. He had no, like, everything, his whole facial expression was panic. It was nothing but panic. And I remember thinking, wow, I really scared the shit out of this man. Like, I scared the hell out of this white man. Now, don't get me wrong. I think anybody would probably be a little alarmed if somebody just hops in the back seat of their car. But I can't help but feel that if I were, say, a white kid, I don't think the reaction would have been as drastic. I really think that in his mind, he's thinking, oh my God, this nigga's coming to rob me. This nigga's coming to kill me. He wasn't thinking, that's Dr. Boyce Watkins in the back seat. See, there's some of y'all, I can hop in the back seat of your car. You might ask me for an autograph. This white man was ready to call the cops. So that was kind of funny. Okay, so anyway, going back to this. Let's see. The researchers found that white participants who were primed by the pictures were more likely to oppose gun control than white participants who didn't see the images. So basically, when they see black people, they're like, no, we don't want gun control because black people kill us. And that's pretty much what the logic is. That's pretty much what was driving a lot of their motivation in terms of their reaction. What's more, prime participants, those who saw the black image, reported higher levels of racial resentment. Who reported higher levels of racial resentment were even more likely to oppose gun control than prime participants who reported lower levels of racial resentment. So they're saying that basically, if you were shown images that made you think of race and you already had racial animosity, then you were very likely to oppose gun control. You really wanted to have a gun. And so just kind of going deeper and kind of reading more and more and more, what this really links to is a very simple idea that when white people talk about the Second Amendment and talk about everybody carrying a gun, they're not talking about black people carrying guns. And so, where this puts the NRA in an interesting predicament is, you've got one of your members. You've got one of your members who's licensed to carry. Now, again, I don't know if he was in the NRA, so let me scratch that. But he was a licensed gun owner, which pretty much means that he should be under the majesty and under the the domain of protection of the NRA. And they have nothing to say about that. And why? Well, a lot of it is because he was shot by a cop. And then the other thing too is it kind of is interesting in terms of it's speaking to. And this is real deep. This is real deep. Think about this. Whenever a white person is a licensed gun owner and they're attacked by a thug, like let's say they're attacked by a black criminal, and they pull out the gun and do the John Wayne Superman thing, and they take out the thug, the NRA usually markets that pretty heavily. They want everybody to know this story. In this particular case, the thug is the cop. The thug is the white guy, not the black guy. And the gun owner, the licensed gun owner, is the black guy, right? The innocent victim is the black guy. And so, I wonder if something had happened and these police were harming this man, or they shot him and he shot back or something, whatever, anything like that. We know for a fact the NRA wouldn't respond to it the same way they would every other story, but it does speak to the challenge of being black in America, where the thugs that you're dealing with are not criminals per se. They're not labeled as as social deviants. They're actually the people that have the gun and the badge, right? So you're in a war with. It's almost like what it makes you think about. It makes you think about being. You ever been in school and let's say you were being bullied by the teacher's pet. You ever have the teacher's pet? The person that is going to tell on everybody when the teacher gets back, and the teacher believes everything that they say, and they get away with all kinds of craziness because nobody believes that the teacher never believes that they could have done anything wrong, and they abuse that authority. Well, in a way, cops are kind of like that for black men, right? It's like they're sort of the teacher's pet because the teacher, which is society, believes that these men can do no wrong. So they look at you and they say, you know what, nigger? I can do whatever I want to you and nothing's going to happen to me. I could kill you right now on this dark road and they're going to believe that you attacked me first, right? And so that becomes the inherent challenge, I think, of being black in this country. So what I think at the very least has to be considered is the idea of black people policing our own communities. I think that we can have a scenario where police forces are people from that area. When you have cops coming from outside of that area who are policing people in that area, it's going to naturally create all kinds of chaos and craziness because people from outside the area don't have a respect for the people who are there. I think also if you have a son, you got to prepare your son to be protected. We're actually going to put together some forums in the very near future, maybe in the next 4 or 5 days, while everybody's feeling this, because right now everybody's responsive to this. But if we talked about this a week ago, a lot of people wouldn't be responsive. But I talked the day before Alton Sterling got killed, and I talked about that brother that was shot by that cop in New York in a road rage incident. Not many people cared about that. So now that people care, it's like, okay, let's talk about this threat that you're now becoming aware of that was always there in the first place. So let's really do all we can to make sure that this does not become sort of a fly-by-night sort of thing. One of the things that people are able to do in terms of taking advantage of black people is they take advantage of the fact that black people are very emotional. And with that emotion, what happens is you're kind of up and down in terms of your commitment about something. And so I don't want us to be intellectually immature on any of this or politically immature. I want us to be politically thoughtful and calculated and actually move forward. So what I'm doing is I'm actually speaking tonight. I'm going to do a conversation with Ken Williams, who is a former cop who knows the system very well. He has actually sued his police force. I think it was the Brockton Police Department. He sued them for racism. He is now suing police departments across the country for racism. He's been a fighter on this issue for a very long time, and I think he's somebody worth listening to. I'm also going to reach out to Dr. Chanel Jones, who is a criminologist at Ohio Dominican University. I'm sure she's going to have some things to say about this. I'm going to talk to Demario Solomon Simmons. I'm going to send him a message right now and try to speak to him as well. He's an attorney out of Tulsa, Oklahoma, because I think that what we need kind of these blueprints to make sure our sons are safe, or as safe as possible. And also, with these systems, I think these systems have to be addressed. And I think that if you talk about the systems and they're linked to the politicians that are asking for your vote, you have to return something back to them and say, I'm asking for your support. I'm asking for you to care about this thing that matters to me. So after the tears are done, after we're done crying, let's pick up the pieces and let's move forward. Because what's so sad about this is that, and I hate saying it, but there's going to be a shooting like this every week. It's going to happen every week for as long as we allow it to. And and I think that we have to do something about it. So anyway, guys, I'm about to get out of here. I got to go and take a meeting. But once again, if you want a free e-copy of my book, It Takes a Village to Raise the Bar, write down this URL. It's drboycewatkins.net. You can go to drboycewatkins.net to get the free ebook. Also, if you want to order Hidden Colors from Tariq Nasheed, I just talked to Tariq. I'm in LA. And I think his documentary does a great job of really laying out Black history and really getting people excited about being Black. And I think it's very important. I think that if you're happy about being Black, you're more likely to identify with your Blackness and see that as an asset and not a liability. You're not put in this country to succeed in spite of your Blackness. You're here to succeed because of your Blackness, right? So anyway, if you're interested in checking out the Hidden Colors series, I partner with Tariq to provide some educational materials to go with it that you get absolutely free with the DVDs and everything else. You can go to hiddencolors1234.com. That's hiddencolors1234.com. And if you just want to see Hidden Colors 4, let's say you've seen all three, I'm actually in Hidden Colors 4. I heard that I look good. I gotta go. I actually have to go watch the whole thing. I've watched some of it, and you can go to hiddencolorsbundlepack.com. That's hiddencolorsbundlepack.com. So go check it out. Maybe it's something that'll kind of keep you focused. Let's not decide that we're just gonna be Black when we get mad. When we get scared. I think that we need to be Black every day of the week, all the time, even on Christmas, and keep focusing on the things that matter. So anyway, take care, guys, and I'll talk to you soon. Have a good day. Peace.